The bloody and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine by Putin continues. Neither side has been able to achieve a decisive breakthrough on the battlefield for months since Ukraine's counteroffensive in Kherson. The Ukrainian army has been trying to advance on the Zaporizhia Front and the Bakhmut section, while Russia appears increasingly threatening on the North Luhansk front. But in general, the situation on the battlefield remained rather stable in the first half of August, except for several notable developments which we're going to talk about in this video. Welcome to another update from Kings and Generals on the war in Ukraine. This video was kindly sponsored by our YouTube members and patrons. Right now, the patrons and YouTube members are exclusively watching our first Punic War and Pacific War series, while the series on the history of Prussia and Italian unification wars, Risorgimento, have been concluded, and the series on the Russo-Japanese War and the Albigensian Crusade and Xenophon's Anabasis will be released next. You can join their ranks via the links in the description and pinned comment to get exclusive videos, early access to all public videos, see our schedule, get access to a special Discord server where we are very active, and much more. Thanks for supporting us, we couldn't be doing it without your help. On the Zaporizhia Front, Ukraine continued making gains, but their pace of advance remains slow, as obstacles in the form of solid defensive fortifications and dense minefields persist. According to Ukrainian sources, it takes 8 hours for Ukrainian sappers to demine 1 kilometer of passage. In some areas there are 8 lines of mines, which is roughly 1,000 mines per kilometer. According to the spokesperson of the Tavriisk grouping of the Ukrainian army, Serhiy Kuzmin, the Russian army has 150,000 soldiers in the Zaporizhia, Kherson and Crimea area, as the Russian command has reportedly been moving reserves there to deal with a shortage of soldiers. Elements of the 5th, 35th, 36th and 58th Combined Arms Army are currently deployed in this theatre of war, and if the reported number of soldiers is true, then the lack of manpower on the Zaporizhia front is no longer a problem for the Russian army. The Ukrainian command claims that the Russians are losing 2 to 3 companies every day, but there's no way to prove this at this point. We will see in the future if the deployment of more units will harm the defensive and offensive operations of the Russian army in Donbass and Luhansk, but so far we've not witnessed it. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, the AFU has managed to break through the first Surovikin line in an unspecified area, but most probably that is southeast of Robotyne, where the Ukrainian army continued to advance. Most of the fighting on this front continues on the Velika Novosilka axis and the Orikhiv axis. On August 9th, the Ukrainians made gains near Priyutna, while the 38th Marine Brigade reportedly entered Uruzhaina. 3 days later, Russian sources reported heavy fighting inside this town, and by August 16th, Uruzhaina was liberated. There are also reports of Ukrainian advances southeast of Robotyne. The AFU also reportedly entered Robotyne on August 11th. By the 15th, the Ukrainians were in the center of the village. Russian bloggers have claimed that elements of the Akhmat battalion and other units have been deployed to Robotyne to stop the Ukrainian liberation of this village. Ukraine also continues to target key supply lines into South Ukraine. On August 6th, storm shadows damaged the Chonhar road bridge once again, while on August 13th, Ukraine launched several S-200 missiles and 20 Mugin 5 drones on the Kerch bridge, which according to Russian sources were all shot down. As of August 13th, the amount of damage to the Kerch bridge, if any, is unclear, but there was smoke over the bridge after strikes, which Russian sources attribute to smokescreens employed by the Russian air defense. But perhaps the most notable development in South Ukraine in the first half of August was the Ukrainian operation on the left bank of the Dnipro near Kozachyi-Lehery. Sources differ on the nature of this operation, with some claiming that it was merely another raid, while others believe that the Ukrainians managed to create a bridgehead near this village. On August 9th, Ukrainian special forces crossed the Dnipro in 7 motorboats, pushed out the 1,822nd Battalion of the Russian army from its positions, took several prisoners, and advanced for up to 800 meters. Russian sources reported that the Ukrainian group was defeated and pushed back, but other sources have insisted that the AFU has actually expanded a bridgehead near Kozachyi-Lehery. This development is significant if the Ukrainian army is not merely raiding to draw more Russian reserves to the Dnipro area, but has actually created a bridgehead on the right bank of the Dnipro. Kazachi-Leheri is beyond the Dnipro's tributary Konka and near the T-2206 highway, which gives the AFU a choice to open a second front in the south by moving towards Crimea or the Zaporizhia Oblast. This may stretch Russian lines in the south thinner, risking a Ukrainian breakthrough. A working bridgehead over the Dnipro would be a game-changer for the Ukrainian counteroffensive, but we are still at a stage where we're not even sure if there is a bridgehead at all, let alone a bridgehead that is suitable for a constant deployment of troops and equipment. In the Bakhmut section, the situation remained relatively stable despite very heavy fighting. Fighting still rages in the south in Klishchiivka, Kurdimivka and Andrivka, and in the north near Bakivka, Kromova and Dubovo-Vasilivka. Despite controlling dominant heights near Klishchiivka, the Russians are still resisting inside the city. According to Ukrainian sources, by August 4th, the AFU was in control of half of Klishchiivka, while having fire control over the rest of the town. On August 9th, Russia reportedly pushed out Ukrainian forces from Bakivka in the north. Ukraine is still looking to take the TO-513 highway, both north and south of Bakhmut, to cut supply lines from these directions into the city, along with having Bakhmut under the fire control of the Ukrainian artillery. On the North Luhansk front, Ukraine's situation continued to deteriorate. On August 5th, heavy fighting was reported in Novoselivsk. Within the next few days, Russia managed to completely push out the Ukrainian defenders from this town. The Russian advance on this front has prompted the Ukrainian government to declare an evacuation of 53 settlements of the Kharkiv Oblast. The Russian army also advanced south of Liman Pershi, reached the town of Sinkivka, and made gains around Klesivka and Kotlyaryvka. Sources reported that Ukrainian reinforcements were being sent to this front in order to stabilize the situation. So, if the situation does not change on the North Luhansk front in favor of Ukraine in the foreseeable future, it may be possible to argue that the Russian command has reached at least some of the goals of its offensive here, by pushing closer to the river Oskil and forcing the Ukrainian army to send reinforcements. In the first half of August, the sides continued exchanging aerial attacks. On August 1st, Ukrainian drones were launched on downtown Moscow. On August 2nd, Russia once again attacked the port infrastructure in Odessa Oblast, destroying 40,000 tons of grain. On August 4th, Ukrainian special forces heavily damaged the SIG oil tanker near the Kerch Bridge using naval drones. SIG was one of the most modern and powerful oil tankers that Russia had, but SIG was not the only target of Ukrainian naval drones on this day, as they also damaged the Elenogorsky Gonyak landing ship. On August 5th, a Ukrainian drone was shot down near the Vnukovo airport, forcing them to stop all flights for some time. On August 9th, Ukraine destroyed the Zagorsk Optics manufacturing plant in Sergiev Posad. The Ukrainian government claims that its air defenses have shot down 3,500 aerial targets since the start of the Russian invasion. The one recent trend which we can notice here is the increased number of strikes in the Black Sea and its shore since the Russian exit from the grain deal. According to Reuters, Ukrainian attacks on Russian vessels in the Black Sea are already starting to cause problems for Russia. Following these attacks, the insurance cost of transportation vessels has increased. In general, the war continues to significantly damage the economies of both countries. Although the drone attacks on Moscow do not cause massive damage, they tend to stop the Moscow airports functioning, delaying the flights for hours at a time, which creates both financial and psychological problems for Russia. On the other hand, according to the Ukrainian Prime Minister Shmyhal, the war costs almost 2 trillion hryvnia every year, some $54 billion, which is partly covered by the financial aid of Kyiv's allies. In the same period, the Russian ruble continued to devalue. As of August 13th, 100 rubles equals $1. Despite its economic struggles, the Ukrainian government continues conducting measures to ramp up its internal military production. In our previous videos, we reported about the manufacturing of Ukrainian-made drones, and now Kyiv is producing more ammunition. According to the Ukrainian Minister of Strategic Industries, Kamyshin, Ukraine will start producing 155mm shells of NATO standards by the end of the year. He also added that in July alone, Ukraine produced twice as many mortar and artillery shells as they did in the whole previous year. the Zelensky government has also cracked down on oft-criticized and corrupt chiefs of conscription offices. On August 11th, Zelensky dismissed all of them, responding to the increased dissatisfaction of the Ukrainian public with the work of conscription offices. This move is an indication that Zelensky intends to fight corruption in Ukraine and is not going to wait until the end of the war to do that. Ukraine's allies continued to provide military aid to Kyiv in the first half of August. The Financial Times reported that the United States has agreed with Bulgaria and South Korea on the supply of their 155mm shells to Ukraine. Similar talks are ongoing with Japan. On August 3rd, the Oryx blog reported that Poland supplied all 200 pledged Rosomak armoured personnel carriers. On August 6th, Czechia gave Ukraine a simulator to train pilots on F-16. Also on that day, a German MP from the ruling party stated that Germany is going to give Ukraine Taurus long-range missiles after all, which the Ukrainian MP, Cherniev, echoed. Taurus has up to 500 kilometers of range, depending on the modification, and will bolster Ukraine's capability of long-range precision strikes, adding to its arsenal of Storm Shadows and Scalp-G. On August 8th, the Pentagon representative Singh confirmed that the Biden administration had given the green light for the training of Ukrainian pilots on F-16s. We are edging ever closer to an announcement of the delivery of F-16 jets, but the timeline of supply and the number of planes to be provided is still unclear. Also on August 8th, the German Rheinmetall Corporation purchased 50 Leopard 1 tanks to donate to the Ukrainian army. On the following day, Germany pledged 2 more Patriot launchers, 10 Bandwagen 206 all-terrain vehicles, more 155mm smoke ammo, 5 border protection vehicles, 4 Vector drones, 100 MG5 machine guns, and 40,000 first aid kits. On August 10th, the Associated Press reported about the intention of the United States to send more military aid to Ukraine, including munition for HIMARS, Patriot, unspecified howitzers and tanks, more javelins, mine-clearing equipment, demolition munitions, and so on, worth $200 million, but this has not been announced officially yet. The Biden administration has also requested $13.1 billion from Congress for additional military aid, and $8.5 billion for economic and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. On August 10th, Azerbaijan pledged more demining vehicles to Ukraine and offered training to Ukrainian sappers. On August 11th, the Netherlands sent 6 mobile medical complexes to the Ukrainian border guard. There are different opinions about Western military aid to Ukraine. Undoubtedly, Western military support is keeping Ukraine in the fight, but is it enough to achieve an advantage on the battlefield? The Polish President Duda certainly thinks it is not. According to him, Ukraine does not have enough weapons to change the balance of the war. But the US official Kirby believes that the USA has given everything that Ukraine has asked for its counteroffensive. On August 6th, the Washington Post provided detailed information about American support to Ukraine. According to them, the US government has already sent $66.2 billion worth of aid to Ukraine, $43.1 billion of which was for military needs. These are big numbers, but the criticism of the US with regard to its slowness and indecisiveness is not entirely misplaced. It took months of requests by Kyiv for the US to send HIMARS. Then it took months for Ukraine's allies to send them tanks, but the US has still not sent promised Abrams tanks. After months of procrastination, Ukraine has got its long-range missiles, and it's not entirely clear why the United States has not made a similar pledge regarding ATACMS. Would the situation on the battlefield be different had the United States and its allies agreed to send weapons faster? Would the initial Russian advance be halted faster had the AFU received HIMARS earlier? Would the Ukrainian counteroffensive be more successful had the West sent tanks earlier, preventing the Russian army from digging in on the Zaporizhia Front? We cannot know for sure, but one can certainly argue so. The most notable diplomatic activity in this period was the Conference on the War in Ukraine organized by Saudi Arabia on August 5th to 6th. Despite maintaining relations with Russia, Saudi Arabia did not invite the Kremlin to this conference. Diplomats from 42 countries traveled to Jeddah. Ukraine proposed its 10-point peace plan. China proposed its 12-point peace plan, and talks were held. but as expected, no breakthrough was achieved. Ukrainian officials are already voicing their concerns about the autumn. The Foreign Minister Kuleba said on August 12th that he expects a tough autumn, a very difficult political season due to more and more voices pushing Kyiv to negotiate with Russia. This concern is valid. It looks like Ukraine has to achieve tangible progress on the battlefield to continue hoping for more Western aid, particularly with the US presidential elections coming up in a year, where undoubtedly various groups against supporting Ukraine will galvanize for a change of the American course on the war in Ukraine. In the meantime, we got more reports about Russian losses. Based on images from Google Earth, the Moscow Times has calculated the number of old Soviet tanks and armored vehicles that the Russian government has sent into Ukraine from the biggest known storage in Vagshinovo. In September 2021, there were up to 3,840 vehicles in Vagshinovo. In November 22, only up to 2,600 vehicles were remaining, a number which dropped to 2,270 by May 2023. While this is just one known storage of old tanks and armored vehicles, the open source data demonstrates that more than 1,500 vehicles have been sent to Ukraine, with the bulk of them probably already being destroyed, as demonstrated by the Oryx blog, which calculates the number of visually confirmed losses by both sides. As of August 13th, the visually confirmed losses suffered by Russia are 2,218 tanks, 4,494 vehicles, 246 command posts and communication stations, 870 artillery systems and vehicles, 255 multiple rocket launchers, 84 aircraft, 101 helicopters and 281 drones. For Ukraine, these are 607 tanks, 1,869 vehicles, 16 command posts and communication stations, 365 artillery systems and vehicles, 50 multiple rocket launchers, 69 aircraft, 32 helicopters, and 162 drones. In terms of manpower losses, the only notable report was the speech of the commander of the Russian Airborne Forces, VDV, Teplinsky. In his speech, he claimed that the number of wounded VDV personnel, who then returned to the war, was 8,500 people. Assuming that some could not return to the war, it is possible to deduce the number of wounded VDV soldiers at 10,000. Since the usual ratio of KIA to WIA is 1 to 3 at least, according to Russian sources, the number of VDV who died in Ukraine is close to 3,000. There has been no other information about manpower losses for either side. According to the New York Times, American intelligence reports that 120,000 Russian soldiers have died since the start of the war, while up to 180,000 were wounded, while the Ukrainians lost 70,000 dead and 120,000 wounded. The murmurings in the Russian blogosphere suggest that Putin is once again considering mobilization, which lends credence to the NYT report. Our series on the Russian invasion of Ukraine will continue, so make sure to subscribe and press the bell button to see it. Recently, we have started releasing weekly Patreon and YouTube member exclusive videos. Join the ranks of patrons and YouTube members via the link in the description or by pressing the button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, join our private Discord, and much more. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing, it helps immensely. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.